All right, welcome to another edition of Overtime presented by Technical File.
It's your boy TIMKINZ, the number three, aka Ass Ketchum, aka Mr. Give It To Me. How are y'all today? How's it going?
I'm the RJ.
Only known as.
The RJ. Camille's still out sick, so she Camille Monet.
The point guard of the crew, Relaxy Lafcart, holding it down for all the women who loves sports.
And it's your boy K Harris, the gentleman,
The gentleman,
the everyday gentleman,
24/7.
but better known as K Diddy.
Take that.
All right, so we made it. We are here. NBA Finals start on Thursday. I was gonna say January, June 2nd. So that'll actually be the day that this episode drops.
Tonight.
It will only be appropriate that we preview the series for you guys. Tech File style.
Remix.
Mm-hmm.
I guess first and foremost, we can go over like how we got here. We kind of go through teams' routes.
Do we have
through
to?
the playoffs? I mean, just to kind of get the people up to speed,
Do we gotta rejiggle what happened with us though?
Hey.
Like, we gotta run that back.
Hey. I mean, I guess we can start there. Boston defeated the Brooklyn Nets 4-0 in the first round. Milwaukee 4-3 in the second round. Miami 4-3 in the third. They were the second seed in the Eastern Conference.
Mm-hmm.
Golden State defeated Denver 4-1, Memphis 4-2, and Dallas 4-1. They were the third seed in the West. So, I mean, I guess first and foremost, like, what did you guys learn about these teams through the playoffs or going back to regular season? Where are you on these two teams?
One, Golden State. Is one of those. It was a surprise, but it shouldn't be a surprise, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Because actually, you know what? Let me rehash that. It was a surprise for me because I thought Memphis was gonna run them out the gym.
Okay.
But after that point, I was cool with them, even though I had my stake on Dallas. But I think it was more so me rooting more so against Golden State, and not necessarily for Dallas, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I don't have nothing against them like that, but I guess I
You
got
just getting
something
to hate that
against
thing.
them. I guess I got something against them. I didn't realize it until this very moment because I'm like, why would I root against them? Guys, like, I don't have nothing against Golden State.
I mean, I don't want to talk for you, but I feel like coming out of Dallas just destroying Phoenix in Game 7, like a lot of people were high on Dallas, like, damn, like they're better than we thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, it's probably that Phoenix was worse than we all thought they were. And I mean, this ain't about the Suns, but I feel like we all should have kind of noticed that when New Orleans pushed them to the limit.
Mm-hmm.
So like going into that series, it was like, oh yeah, of course, Phoenix is gonna win. They're going back to the Western Conference Finals at least, and then they're gonna have either Memphis or Golden State. So then when that got upended, like instead of discounting what Phoenix did, like we overrated what Dallas did, and then they ran into a real team.
They got smoked.
Got ran out of the jail. So yeah, I think it was a prisoner of the moment type deal for sure for a lot of people. But again, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So
now with I think it's interesting because I was actually, now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more. The run that Miami had to the conference finals is kind of the run outside of Phoenix that Memphis. Oh, actually, because Phoenix was playing the way they was playing, kind of the same route that Miami did to get to the conference finals for the East. Like the big, hard monster teams that the Cats was really worried about, Golden State dealt with them, in essence. So they dealt with Denver, they dealt with Memphis, and they dealt with Dallas to get to the championship. Dallas dealt with the Pelicans. No, not the Pelicans. Who was their first round?
Utah.
The dysfunctional Utah, who don't ever do shit in playoffs, really. And then they had to deal with
Phoenix, dog.
Phoenix. hey, I'm sorry. It's late, you know. I used most of this shit for the day, and I ain't got too much.
Yeah, I don't got much left.
But they had it. If you consider it, it's not as tumultuous of a road that Golden State had to get through, because Memphis was a handful in itself, honestly. And I felt like that with Miami, we're having to deal with injury-riddled squads getting to the Eastern Conference Final, where Boston had to go through a buzzsaw. Granted, they swept Brooklyn, but it's Brooklyn. Like, all those games were close. They went down to the wire. So they went to a mini buzzsaw to get to where they are. So I guess they both kind of went through their own things to kind of get to where they was at. It's just I felt like Golden State had an easier time outside of Memphis.
I don't know what point you're trying to make.
I don't know, bro. Again, let me just go ahead and let y'all do your thing.
Let him cook. He's trying to cook out here.
I forgot the recipe.
What'd you think of Boston and Golden State's routes to get here? Like, did you learn anything new about them? Were you impressed? Were you kind of disappointed? Do you feel like they had an easy road, hard road? Like, anything of the above? Like, how you feeling about what it took for these teams to get here?
Yeah, I definitely feel like for Boston, it was definitely a tougher road because they had it was like it was so up and down for Boston. Like in each series that they played, like they had games that they didn't show up at all. Then they had games that they come in and just like low key. They look, yeah, exactly. They look like the best team. So it was just so up and down for them. I still have. It's hard for me to want good for the Celtics being a Laker fan. And you know, it really is like this. I'm trying to like move my bias out the way, but I was like, man, I don't want these niggas, bro. I ain't even gonna lie to you.
Hey man, they put our team out. You know, we in the same boat.
But then you know,
time football.
But then like the Kobe love with Tatum, that just how they just tug at my heart. I'm like, man. But still, at the end of the day, fuck Boston at the end of the day. But it's dope to see the resurgence of the Warriors. Like for me, I'm not saying like I ever counted them out, but I honestly didn't expect to see them in the finals this year, like at all. Yeah, like not this year. I was just like, wow, like to see like the road that they took to get here, like they battled through injuries, Clay coming back. All of that, like Jordan Poole stepping up, like their story and their storyline is super dope, and it's actually I feel like it's really good for the NBA. And now all of a sudden all the Warrior fans is coming out the woodworks again, talking and all of that good stuff or whatever. But yeah, it's dope to see them. It's dope to see the Warriors good again. Like I said on our pod, it's like they kept their core, bro, for years. And like you never see that happen like in any professional sports. So to see like these cats been playing together for years and like they've been dominant like for years, like the Patriots, like Tom Brady and the Patriots of football. Like that's how the Warriors like play and Curry and Draymond, like that's how they are with the NBA. So I feel like it's gonna be an exciting series though. I'm actually looking forward to watching it. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm already planning like where I'm gonna be at since I'm gonna be out of town. I was like, I gotta be somewhere watching.
It may be a banger, honestly. It may be a banger of a series.
So something you said, Ken, that kind of jogged some for me, like, and it's a little bit off topic. In our age range, like, is it a lot of Warriors fans? Like, I feel like most of the Warriors fans that I know are like
younger.
kids, but like
as
far as our age group, like I don't see the bunch of like Warriors bandwagoners on Facebook like I do with like Lakers and Celtics and LeBron James. You know what I mean? Like, well, no, I mean I'm saying like even when they were up the last couple of years, like for their 5-year run and now coming back, like I don't see anybody like, yeah, Warriors back. Y'all count us out, blah blah blah. Like I don't see that again from all my Facebook friends are going to be like our age or older, but I don't know. Like it's interesting because I feel like how it's probably people that are Bulls fans from when we were kids. Like I feel like Warriors are capturing like that age range. But like I don't see many people like hopped on the bandwagon, at least in my friend peer group, I guess. So I was just curious, like, have y'all seen that too? Because like Ken, you said they all coming back out the woodwork, like. Yeah,
I'm just like what I see like on Twitter and just social media, not necessarily like in our age group or our friend circles or anything like that, but yeah, like other people like on social media, I've been seeing everybody coming out the woodworks. I honestly don't know any Warrior fans, to be honest. I don't think I know one.
Only the bandwagon joints.
Yeah, like I don't know any like true like. Yeah,
but like I feel like that's our age range. If we do find legit like Warrior fans, well, not even legit. If you do know them, is because they bandwagon. At least our age range, I feel like, because like kids understand because Steph changed the game. Steph is different and shit. So a lot of these kids have been growing up in essence with Steph and LeBron.
I mean, kids are inherently bandwagon kids. Like no kid like goes out and be like, "Oh yeah, I want this team that has 25 years of misery." Like unless like their parents were fans of that team, but that's again unless their parents were fans of that team. But it's not like nobody's gonna pick a team like halfway across the country. And it's like, oh yeah, the Kings are trash. Like let me be a Kings fan. Like at 8 years old, it's just not happening. But yeah, I mean, I was just curious because you said that, and I'm like, I really haven't seen like plenty of people come back out talking shit. Like, I didn't have any the first time around. Like, I feel like people are respectful of what the Warriors are doing, or they just hated on them. But like, I ain't see anybody just like, rah cheerleader for Golden State, at least here. Just curious. Anyway, routes to the playoffs. So like, Tim, as you were going through, like, who had an easy route and who had a hard route, and like you're naming all these teams, I'm like, everybody it feels like had an easy route, like between injuries and teams just underperforming. Like I get where like every year that like the teams that make the finals, like you got to be lucky because like these are the two healthiest teams. It feels like going into the finals. Like only I think the Warriors have like 3 guys that are questionable. In Iguodala, Payton, and Otto Porter, and then Wiseman obviously missed the whole year. But then Boston's only injury is Robert Williams, which I mean is a key injury, but it's not one of their top 4 players. Like it's a 5th piece, and he's actually still able to at least get on the court, even if he is limited. So, like when you compare that to Brooklyn missing Ben Simmons, whatever you think of Ben Simmons, he's still a max level player, multi-time all-star, a big piece of what they plan to do. Bucks missing Middleton, a second or third best player, depending on your mileage may vary. Miami, Jimmy like basically was nothing for half of that series because his knee was shot. Lowry, same deal with his hamstring. Tyler Hero missed a bunch of games. Even Philadelphia, Embiid was walking wounded like for most of that.
The orbital face fracture, they missed a game or two, like. And
then you get to the teams that like underperform, like Atlanta. The Knicks didn't even make it. I'm trying to think of like who from last year. In the West, the Lakers, the Clippers had a down year because of their injuries. That Denver Golden State series would have been a lot different if they had Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. So like every team aside from Phoenix that got eliminated can look to like, oh, we had a major injury and that's why we're not here. And these two teams don't necessarily have that. So again, it does come down to being lucky and good, obviously. Like I'm not trying to take anything away from them. I'm just saying like it's part of it, and like it really is like, can you weather the storm? Like, are you deep enough that if injuries do come up, and are you lucky enough that injuries don't? So,
hell, look at our run last year. We was lucky enough to get Giannis back for the finals because we missed him in the last 2 games of the conference finals,
and catching
it was the same thing,
right? And catching Brooklyn when
they were gelling still.
well, I mean, I'm saying like Brooklyn was sunk by Harden's injury, and then Kyrie gets hurt, and then Harden comes back, and he's like a shell of himself. It's like they benefited from that. I never was like, oh well, I mean, like we the best, blah blah blah. It's like no, we got lucky, we got a break, and like that's the things that have to happen for you to get to the final. So it's just interesting seeing like both of their paths were both kind of like impacted by injuries. Like Ja got hurt in the second round, and he missed the last couple games.
Dylan Brooks 2 games.
Well, he got suspended. That wasn't an injury.
True, but I'm saying he was still a huge piece for them missing.
Self-inflicted, but I get what you're saying. Because he took out Gary Payton, so it's kind of a watch at that point. Even Tim Hardaway Jr., like, again, not a major piece, but like it is
a key contributor.
Second leader scorer, at least at the time of his injury. So, yeah, Boston, again, like, they had a fortuitous route, I think. Like given like who they played, like if you look at it on paper, it's like, oh man, they went through a murderer's row, and it's like, oh well, Brooklyn, like they barely squeaked past, and
they don't play no defense,
but it was barely right. Like they barely made it past. Like I think the margin of victory for that entire series was like 31 points or something like that, like over 4 games that they all won. So it was a bunch of close games that they just happened to pull out. And then obviously no Middleton second round, and like I said, like half of Miami's starting 5 was out or severely limited. And like the Bucks and Miami taking them to 7, it's kind of like that's concerning, especially late game 7, like the way they almost tricked that off. Like again, Jimmy Butler hits that 3-pointer, we might be doing a Heat Warriors preview podcast. So it's like they haven't been dominant. But it's a new series, and it's all about like how they match up with these two teams, like with the other teams. So, which we'll get to later about like the matchups and what these two teams need to do to win. But I do think that I'm less impressed by Boston's run just because Golden State has looked so much more dominant and much more competent than Boston has today. Like they've had tougher opponents, but like they've shot themselves in the foot a number of times. Like there's no reason that they should have lost like 2 of those games against Milwaukee. Like they completely fumbled one, and then the other one they didn't really show up for. So, but then like the Warriors came out and took care of business. Like even when they were challenged against Memphis, like they still, like found ways to pull it out. Like again, they haven't seen Game 7. Basically. I ain't want to blame the black man, but yeah.
I was trying not to, but I'm like, bro, of their entire playoff run this year, those 2 games was the worst they looked.
Yeah.
And honestly, those 2 games, even though they won 1 and lost 1, I believe. Or did they win both of them?
I think they lost 2.
They won the first one.
Or they
with Mike Brown.
I feel like they had 3 games with Mike Brown. I don't know.
I'm almost sure they lost.
No, I thought they did lose the second one for sure.
They won the first one for sure because that's what Steph said. He thought they turned into.
You're right.
The Kings.
They almost lost that game. That's what it was. Yeah. They looked like trash, and Memphis just kind of tricked that off at the end.
So here's the issue with that, though. They looked how Boston has been looking every other game. That one game. For that little period of time, Boston has looked like that every other game throughout this entire playoffs. Outside of the Brooklyn series. And even with the Brooklyn series, they had points where you was like, oh shit, they might lose this.
Game 1 against Brooklyn.
So with Golden State, it's like they can't have these 35 turnover games and expect to win still. They can't have these games where they go ice cold in the first half or the second half, or Jaylen Brown scored 28 points straight in the first quarter without missing or first half without missing a shot, and then go 0 for 4 for the rest of the game and still expect to win. Like, I don't think they can do that with Golden State, because Golden State is too, like you said, they have the chemistry, they have the time together, but I also think that Ime Udoka is a good coach. He's a good coach. This is his rookie year, so you can only base it off of what you've seen so far. And what we've seen so far is he's made the adjustments. He's a good coach.
He's in the finals.
He's in the finals, and his rookie year, this is probably the first. If he wins, I think this will be the second time or something like that. It's not happened often where a rookie coach wins the finals.
Hurt.
So it's not often, and now you're going against that coach. So it's like, with the ability of the squad for Golden State and Kerr's coaching ability and just their continuity for the most part, is like Boston, and like to go back to your point, you're kind of like Boston kind of struggled their way through to the finals, and if they have those type of games against Golden State, they might not make it that long.
Yeah, I agree. They were fortunate. Like, they've gone up against, in the last 2 rounds, they've gone up against really strong defenses, but teams that can't really score, especially in the half court. But that were, devastating in transition. That's where, like, the Bucks and the Heat both got most of their points. Which, to your point, is turnovers. Like, if you don't commit turnovers, like, you're not giving transition opportunities to your opponent. The Warriors don't have that issue. Like, they can definitely score in the half court. They do things on offense much differently than anybody else in the league. Like, you can't prepare for the Warriors, which is why, like, I've heard a lot of people say, like, I would be surprised if Boston wins game 1, just because there's an adjustment period, like, to playing against the Warriors. And, like, the way, like, it's not a bunch of, spread pick and roll, like, 90% of the rest of the league. Like, you really have to do your homework and be locked in on, like, your rotations, your switches, like, all that stuff defensively. And it just takes some time to kind of get your feet wet. But yeah, Golden State's not going to have problems in the half court scoring. So Boston doing all that shit that they've done up until this point, like, it's going to come back to bite them on their ass if they don't get that stuff cleaned up. And, Golden State has a great defense too. Like, it's not like, the defense is going to be slacking from what they've just come from. And they still have to deal with, like, a high-power offense that actually has, like, ball movement and shooting, unlike the last 2 things that they played.
Them boys be playing Ring Around the Rosie, bro. At the bottom of the damn, under the rim, slingshotting each other. Like, what the fuck is this? What is going on here? Did he just throw that man around the other? Like, bro, come on. Watch Steph do. What are we doing here? You just sitting like, bro, what are we doing here, bro? What is this? 3! Like, what the fuck?
All right. Before we go to break, one last discussion point. X factors. Who are your X factors for this series? Let's do one for each team.
Ken, who you got, bro?
Steph Curry. Once he, hey,
easy button.
It is. That's what I'm saying. Like, once he get hot, it's just like,
and that's right, the A through what, W factor.
Yeah,
like,
so it's just like, hey. No, but honestly, I'll say Kevin Looney. It depends how well, because he's been like Draymond-ish in this past series. So I feel like Kevin Looney will definitely. I think that he will be a definite X factor this series.
I think that he won't, only because Boston has the bigs that Dallas did. The big that Memphis did only played 2 games in Valanciunas. But when he was in, my man was collecting the boards. He was collecting the blocks and the points. Like, they have Al Horford, who they can throw at you, even though he's like 6'9", he plays like a big man. Like, I really do fuck with Al Horford. I've always fucked with Al Horford's game, but he plays like a big. And then you bring in, even though Robert Williams is hurt, my man's still blocking shots from a 3-point line, jumping from damn near the baseline. Like, he still plays like a big. Grant Williams is strong as shit. He's sturdy as fuck. He still plays like a big man too. So, and then you could bring Daniel Tyson. Even though he's a big, he's more finesse than anything, but he's still another big body that Dallas or Memphis didn't necessarily have to throw at them like that outside of Jaren Jackson or Brandon Clark. But still, like, I don't think that you throwing Looney out there against a squad who actually has big men to help have an issue in the post. Because hell, even Tatum is 6'9". Like, I think that he wouldn't be. I would give the X factor to honestly. Grant Williams would probably be an X factor to me because he'd probably be tasked with not only switching on a Draymond to kind of help disrupt some of the shit that he's doing, but also be tasked with, if Looney's in the game, he'll probably deal with him, or if Kuminga come in the game, he'll probably deal with him because you have all the starters. Yeah, you got the Smarts, you got the Jalen's, you got the Jays, but Grant Williams was an X factor as far as the rotationals for the bigs and the wings. His defense and his shooting could be a big reason why Boston wins these games. Outside of the usual suspects. And then Golden State, I'm going to give it to Jordan Poole. I feel like depending on when he comes in, like say Smart's out the game or whatever the case may be, at whatever point in time that Jordan Poole comes into the game, say he's with the starters with Steph and them, or he's coming off and going against the second unit, he going to light motherfucking Pritchard up. That's how I feel about it. Those are my two X factors.
All right, I'll go quick since Tim was out here like Charles Barkley, just taking up all the time.
Charles.
Real quick, I'll say Marcus Smart, defensive player of the year. Like you got Steph. So if you can't check Steph, if you can't disrupt what he does, it's gonna be a long ass. Well, it might be a short ass series for Boston, but it's gonna be a long ass night for Marcus Smart if he can't. And then for Golden State, like I agree, it's Jordan Poole. Like he has to prove that he can hang defensively, because like what he can do offensively. But if he gets picked on like Strus and Grayson Allen before him, like it's gonna be a problem. So we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Overtime presented by Technical Foul. We got Eric, Ken, Tim here. Shout out to Camille. Get better soon.
Welcome back.
But we are previewing the 2022 NBA Finals between Golden State Warriors and Boston Celtics. So where we left off, we were talking about X Factor, so we can go right into matchups. If you can pick a team, tell me like who you will put on who out of their projected starting lineups. Or more simply put, like what matchup are you gonna be keeping an eye on? Like, oh man, like I mentioned, Marcus Smart on Steph Curry, like that's gonna be important for Boston's success. Like if he can't check Curry, then your goose is cooked, essentially. I don't know why I'm throwing out plenty.
Your goose is cooked.
Plenty sayings right now, but yeah.
Your chicken is choked.
Oh, here you go, dog.
Always gotta take it left.
Exactly. Here you go.
Okay, because it seems like y'all having trouble with that, so I'll rephrase. What do you think Golden State is gonna do to check Jason Tatum?
That's what I was thinking about, because I'm like, I feel like, okay, we're looking at the starters. We're talking about Steph, Clay, Draymond. You think they're gonna start Kuminga?
No.
I mean, he's been doing his own thing.
The starting line. Well, first of all, he didn't play like a lot of that Dallas series, but the starting lineup that Golden State's been going with is obviously Steph, Clay, Draymond, Looney, and Wiggins.
I don't know how the fuck I forgot about Andrew. Almost Magic Johnson Trophy Award winning Wiggins. I think that they'll probably match Wiggins up with, because they've been really using, outside of Draymond, they've been really using Wiggins to guard the best player in essence, quote unquote. Or he's been faced with the best player a lot, like again with the Luka joint and shit like that. So they'll probably put Wiggins on Tatum. They'll probably put Wiggins on Brown, just for like the size and the athleticism and shit like that. Which means Draymond will probably take on Tatum, which what makes the most sense to me. And like you said, then Steph and Marcus Smart, and then who's the Who would Boston? Oh, damn. Who would Boston put on Clay? Probably Jalen. Damn, that's interesting. Because they now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, like they do have some nice little defensive setup and shit. This is gonna be a banging ass series. Go ahead, Eric. Let me go ahead and continue to think about this shit.
It's funny just like following you along because I could definitely see like your wheels turning as you follow through it. Like, oh yeah, so just again, like let's level set for a moment. Like I read off Golden State's projected starting lineup for Boston is Tatum, Brown, Marcus Smart, or Al Horford, and Robert Williams, assuming he's healthy. So when you were running it down, it's like I'm thinking like who if you have Draymond and Wiggins taking the two wings, then who's guarding your bigs? Because you got Kevon Looney, but then it's Steph and Steph and Clay. Like one of them is gonna have to check either Horford or Williams in that alignment. So like there are questions there. And we don't have to get into the nitty gritty because that ain't what people come to this show for. As far as I'm concerned, like with Tatum, like it has to be kind of a group thing. Like I do think that Andrew Wiggins is probably going to get the first crack at it just because they're like-sized. He's athletic enough to kind of disrupt what he does. And honestly, the last two series have kind of given the blueprint. Like Tatum's gotten off, but like he's been hounded. Like he needs somebody up in his grill that's going to jam him, force the ball out of his hand, like make him into a passer. Like he needs somebody that's going to be physical. So I do think that Draymond is at points going to get that assignment, but I think that they prefer to have him as like their quarterback, their Giannis, where he's kind of roaming around and just providing help defense everywhere, and being like that back line of defense. So yeah, I think that he will probably get parked on Horford just because he's probably going to be spaced for the most part. Although, I mean, like, they cannonball him as a screener, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. But I do think that it'll be Wiggins to get first crack, and then down the stretch, they probably shift Draymond that way.
Yeah, okay. What you got, Ken? Unless you still think it too.
Is there any matchup that you're like, that would be interesting to the, benefit or destruction of one team or the other?
Yeah, the main one that I was trying to figure out was the Jason Tatum, but it makes sense that you said it'd be more of a team effort type of thing. And I always forget about Wiggins too for some reason. Like as soon as you said, I was like, "Fuck, they got Wiggins." Like I was like, "Okay, like he matches up well with Tatum just because." You said what?
I said him and Brown.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, they do have somebody that can match up with him, but with Tatum, like he'll have those games where he just lights out, and it'll take the entire team. Like start off with Wiggins and then just rotate if it's not working.
I forgot to mention this on our show on Tuesday, and I know y'all call me a Jason Tatum hater. I'm not. I want to get that man's props since he was hitting some shots. When Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown weren't trying to shoot them out of the game or just couldn't keep the ball, like keep possession of the ball. Like Jason Tatum hit some shots in that fourth quarter that were just like, what the fuck are you supposed to do with that? Like there was like 2 seconds left on the shot clock and he hit that fadeaway jumper over Jimmy Butler where he like shook him one way. He damn near had Jimmy stumbling. Like Jimmy was out the frame like when he did the turnaround and fadeaway. And then there was like that sidestep three that he hit. Like again, like if Jason Tatum, like he has some games where he just can't hit shit. But like when he's on, like
it's scary for bucket for damn near anybody.
Yeah.
Right. That game 6 against Milwaukee, like if he ain't do that, like they were done. Like the Bucks had that game and he just went like Giannis
bucket
was, like,
for bucket, bro.
Right. And it was just like backbreaker after backbreaker. It was just like I was like, he doing that, you just gotta tip your cap. So like
speaking of crazy. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was pretty much done. I was saying like if he's doing that, like you don't really have an answer for him. So I just wanted to give him his flowers for that because that was impressive.
That crazy ass shot he hit against us when he did the scoop and he was damn near on the ground, parallel with the ground, and still threw that shit up. What was it, game 6 or game 6 or 7? It was game 7 where he just damn near did a scoop one hand. I'm like, bro, what the fuck was that?
I mean, he was flopping on that and it just happened to go in, but I feel you.
But that is you kind of thought, and I've thought about it a little bit more, right? Jason Tatum. So how Boston kind of works, kind of from what I've seen in this playoffs. Jason Tatum is gonna be your bucket, of course. He's your superstar. He's if he's gonna match points with anybody, every series he's matched buckets with KD, he's matched buckets with Giannis, he's matched buckets with Jimmy. Mm-hmm. He can match buckets with Steph too. You'll get pick a half, and that's where you get Jaylen Brown. It won't be all game. You got to pick a half. Either he gonna go hot first half, or he go hot second half, or like he'll give you a 16 to 18 point third quarter. Like pick a half, and you'll get Jaylen Brown. Pick a quarter, and you'll get Marcus Smart.
Pick a quarter,
honestly, because it's Tatum really getting the buckets for the most part, and then you'll get a quarter or two out of Brown, or you'll get a quarter out of Smart, or you'll get a quarter out of Tatum. Not Tatum, Horford. Like Golden State though has guys who will consistently. Well, Clay will give you after game 4. Clay gonna match you bucket 2. Game 5, 6, 7. You don't want to see Clay. But they have, again, Poole who can give you consistent buckets throughout the game. You have Steph who can give you consistent buckets throughout the game. You have Clay, in essence, like I said, he'll disappear for you, but he'll still give you 15 to 18, even if he's on a bad night. He'll still give you 2-3 threes, or even on a bad night. But he also plays defense. And I'm thinking, Brown ain't got the handles like that. And so you can put Clay on a Brown, because Clay still plays defense. He ain't the all NBA-ish defender like he used to be, but he still can play good defense when he needs to and step up when he needs to. So I would think with Brown handle ability and Clay's left to right ability, they kind of a wash.
Like sense. Now that you bring that up, and like I guess I did, because Clay's coming off the injury and he's a little bit diminished athletically. Like I didn't even consider him for
defense,
the Jason Tatum assignment, but he actually might be better served there, because again, like you want somebody that's going to be up in them, that's going to play him physically, and like that's what Clay is kind of relying on now more than like before. It was like he could move his feet really quickly, like he could stay with small guards, like he could guard anybody essentially, whereas now he's kind of more in that Wes Matthews category, like not as a player, but I'm saying like where you kind of gotta use your smarts and your physicality, and because like that's kind of like the archetype that you want. PJ Tucker, Wes Matthews, like that's the archetype that you want on Tatum. Like that actually might be the better solution to start with. Like the body blows, then you have Draymond or Wiggins, who's a little bit fresher, that can at the end of games kind of take over and give you like another 6'7" dude who's going to give Jason Tatum a fresh body coming at him. So yeah, that's a good point. Like I hadn't really considered Clay defensively, but I do think that's another weapon that they can use to deploy.
And Thompson. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, so you don't think that'll take away from you don't think that'll take away from him offensively though? If he's so physical and so zoned in on playing Tatum so tough?
Yes, that is a concern. And again, like NBA series these days, like it's never like one-on-one. Like it's always like kind of a team effort
system.
So again, like if at the point of attack you just have him kind of fighting, like he may not have to. Like Jason Tatum is a lot more. I hold the ball. I kind of size up the defense and I go to work. Whereas Jaylen Brown will be more like I'm moving around, I'm cutting, I'm driving, like I'm doing all this other shit. And because I don't want to get stripped, like I kind of got to do everything fast, so like that's probably a lot more taxing for Clay to try to chase him around and then run around off screens and all that stuff that he does offensively. So like maybe giving him a more stationary Jason Tatum, again, kind of conserves his energy, at least conserves his legs a little bit.
Yeah,
that's why I was pairing Brown with Wiggins because of the athleticism. Because that's what I was thinking of initially. I'm like, Brown, even though he ain't got the dribbles, he got the shakes. Like he'll move and groove on you, he'll hesitate you, and then move around, and next thing you know, you touching the ground. So,
how did I get here?
Hey, right? You out here looking like motherfucking Ted Cruz Jr. Like, yeah, it's gonna be a fun fucking series, bro.
Yeah, I think so. So before we get to our picks, I hate to bring in the ESPN talking points, but it's part of the conversation. So we're gonna go there. Legacy talk, specifically Steph Curry.
Mm-hmm.
He famously has 3 rings and 0 Finals MVPs. I think that first one was some bullshit. Like Andre Iguodala ain't do shit to deter LeBron James.
No,
but like, oh, he made him work for it. It's like, okay, great.
What?
He still gave him like buckets game after game. But that's neither here nor there. Do you think that Steph needs, quote unquote, a Finals MVP if the Warriors win this series? Like, does he need that for his legacy? Will it take away from it if, you know, some other Warrior gets Finals MVP in the event of a Warriors win?
No, I don't feel like it. I feel like we all have seen and we know what Curry is. I don't feel like him winning a Finals MVP solidifies him even more than what he is now. Like, he's one of the greatest shooters to ever play. He's one of the best point guards to ever play the game. And it's like he changed the game of basketball. Like, this is literally, I don't know what else he could possibly do that can, you know, deter his legacy at this moment. So I don't believe him winning a Finals MVP is gonna, like, you know, take him to another level. Like, he's already there. We know who he is.
I feel like the people who say that are just Steph haters, honestly, because as much as they want to talk about the Warriors dynasty, you can't say shit without Steph. Honestly, like, even with KD coming on, it was KD and Steph. It wasn't just KD's team. Like, KD sure was the offensive juggernaut, but it's not like Steph was just like, okay, I'm gonna just go ahead and get my Chris Bosh on to average 17 a game, even though I was putting up 25 and 12. Like, no, my man was still, you still have to pick his ass up at half court. He's still knocking threes down and dancing on your shit.
Shimmying
putting up 35, knocking out 8 threes and shit. Like, he was still doing that at a high clip. Like, no, you don't. He does not need a Finals MVP. Well, he got the Magic Johnson trophy, so you don't need the Finals MVP. He already got a trophy for the playoffs. But no, I just think it's stupid. I always thought it was stupid with Steph when they were like, "Oh, well, he ain't got a Finals MVP, so that just he doesn't solidify his legs." And my man's got 3.
Exactly. What else do you want from this?
As not as a somebody coming off the bench, not somebody who, like, not an Andre Iguodala still getting buckets, like you said, put on him and everything like that. Andre didn't lead the team in scoring. Andre didn't lead the team in assists and shit like that. None of that shit. Steph was up there. Like, I don't feel like his legacy will be solidified with a Finals MVP, because we gonna hear from his ass in the Finals regardless if he get that trophy or not.
Exactly.
He gonna bombs away no matter if he get that damn trophy or not. So if you want to give it to him, sure. Like, even with the last round, they was talking about Wiggins. Like, yeah, Wiggins had a good series, and I was one of, like, you know, Wiggins he been balling, but to close the bitch out, who did it? Clay and Steph. Every game it was Steph and Wiggins, Steph and Dre, Steph and Clay. Like, it's always gonna be Steph and.
Yeah, Steph is a cheat code. Yeah, he a cheat code in himself.
Bro, you pull it up. His pregame warm up is legendary. Like, you get a whole ass show from him just warming the fuck up.
And he do the same shit in the game.
Yeah, I didn't expect anything less, but I'm proud of y'all for being on the right side of history here. I feel like one of the first years that we were doing this, we were talking about Finals MVP, and I'm like, I just want Steph to win one, just so that the conversation, like, we don't have to have that conversation anymore going forward. Like, he's clearly the engine that makes this dynasty go. Like he's the Warriors Tim Duncan. Like he's the one. He's the alpha and the omega. Like no matter how many other Hall of Famers he has around him, like they don't go to the heights that they've gone to without Steph Curry. He's in that upper level of NBA stars all time, like where he changed the game, he changed the way that it played, he changed the way that it was defended,
the rules.
Yeah, like he ruined basketball for kids because like they want to emulate what he's doing, and what he does is so singular, like that it can't really be replicated. Like he's stamped and certified, like regardless. Like I think people only look at. It's the same thing with LeBron, where people are so protective of the people that were great when they were kids, like the nostalgia factor, that they look for anything, like anywhere that they don't measure up to the greats they come before them. It's like, oh, well, you ain't better than him because you ain't you ain't get 6 rings, you lost in the finals, you did this, you did that, and it's like, okay, like there are things on Steph Curry's resume that aren't on Michael Jordan's, or or on Magic Johnson's, or whoever, whoever you're trying to compare him to. Like you're only using that as a blueprint, but you're not really looking at it in its totality. You just want to take things off, like, okay, well he ain't do this, so obviously he ain't on his level, and it's just it's such a stupid ass way to consume basketball. But hey,
that's the unanimous MVP.
Yeah. And again, like people were mad about that because it's like, well, there's never been unanimous. He shouldn't be the first one because he's not Michael Jordan. He's not. So what, fam? Like
exactly. Like what you mean?
Like this year, everybody thought he was the best.
And maybe the problem is like people in the past were hating, and like they didn't have accountability for like people and like who they vote for these awards. So like you could be like the lone person that voted, Byron Russell MVP or some shit because you didn't want Michael Jordan to be a unanimous MVP. Like that never happened. But I'm just saying, for example, like you could just cast a vote blindly and nobody ever knows who it is. Like Steph won unanimous MVP the first year, I believe, where like they were actually publishing who voted for what. So accountability matters.
I do think that's kind of funny now that before it was a secret on who voted. Now all of a sudden these talking heads and anybody with a mic and a camera in front of it, yeah, I got a vote.
I voted.
This year. I got a vote, and my vote was for so and so. Like, I hear you, but all year you was talking about bro. So you just telling me you've been lying all year? Because there was hella people that were like, oh yeah, I voted for Giannis. You ain't said shit about him all year. All year you've been talking about Luka. Y'all been talking about Jokic. And I was saying, oh yeah, I voted for Giannis. What? Where was this energy at? Like I do think that portion of it is hilarious. And those people are probably the same one. Well, they don't vote for the final. Who vote for the finals MVP, by the way?
It's like 10 people that are covering finals, but we do need to get to our picks. I don't want us to run out of time, so we'll switch gears here. One thing to bring up, I don't remember the exact number for the Warriors, but finals game experience going into the series is like 163 games for the Warriors and 0 for Boston. So like I don't know, like how much that experience is going to matter for two pretty evenly matched teams, but that's just something to keep in mind. Ken, we haven't heard from you, so I'm gonna let you start us off. Who you got? Warriors, Celtics.
I have Warriors in 6. 4-1-2. We got 2 Milwaukee boys, 2 Milwaukee young men with the Warriors, Kevin Looney and Jordan Poole. So shout out to both of them young men. And then always F Boston. So Warriors in 6.
This is a pure like pick with the heart, not for any reason. It's just
I'm just this is just me being me.
I'm actually, and as much as I would hate to lose to somebody who didn't win a chip, I would have to agree with Ken with Warriors in 6 because, like I said, now I'm thinking about it more and more. It's like Boston can't help themselves but turn the ball over. And every time Jaylen Brown touches the ball, he reminds me of Clay Matthews and Marquette. That motherfucker. As soon as he touched the ball, not Clay Matthews, Wes Matthews at Marquette.
I was like, Clay, what?
No, Wes at Marquette. The minute he touched the ball, that bitch was gone.
I mean, that's West
It was
with the Bucks
terrible.
too.
Like, but it's wild, like how often as a team they just give the ball away, and Golden State is gonna really eat it. Like, granted, again, Boston's a really good defensive team, but
And Golden State turns the ball over a ton too. Like, just to be clear.
Yeah, some of those mistakes that Boston flew with and got away with, I don't think that they could be able to do that with Golden State, honestly. So that's really the only my main deciding factor, because I feel like across the board, defensively and like player wise, matchup wise, benches, the whole nine and stuff like that, outside of Jordan Poole coming off the bench, so to speak, I feel like it's a pretty even teams. So it'll come down to, I feel like, who capitalized the most on the turnovers, and I just feel like Boston turns it over way too much.
I'm gonna work through my pick as I say this, because I've been going back and forth on it. Either way, it's a Boston series, so it's going 7. To your point about the turnovers, and what I kind of brought up briefly is Golden State on their own turns the ball over a lot. Like a lot. Like, they're just really careless with the ball, which that carelessness sometimes leads to like spectacular plays and like just like zipping the ball around. Like, there are gonna be mistakes. So like, I understand why it is, but it's just like you have a high baseline of turnovers because you're a little bit loose with the ball, and you're going up against a defense that is basically like 6'4" across the board, 6'4" and up across the board. Like, they don't. Peyton Pritchard may or may not play this series, but he's the only guy under 6'4" that they're going to have on the court at any point in time. Like, if they do go to a switching everything type of defense, like, that's the type of stuff that can kind of disrupt play. Not play. I mean, it can disrupt play, but that's the stuff that can really disrupt Steph. Like, Cleveland in the finals year after year really played him physically. Like, there's a reason why he wasn't finals MVP a lot of those years, because his numbers were a little bit down from where they were in the playoffs in the previous rounds, and of course from the regular season. And that's because of the way that they defended him with physicality, with large, long defenders. So I think that Boston does have the personnel to make things really difficult for Steph and for the shooters of Golden State. Like, you saw, Robert Williams on one leg flying out and blocking 3-pointers. Like, they have athletes across the board. They have long defenders across the board. Like, I think on the defensive end, they have enough to kind of make it difficult, as they've done for every opponent that they've faced in these playoffs. Where I keep getting hung up on is that the Warriors also have a really great defense, and Boston's offense has not impressed me. Like, even when they were playing really well in the regular season, like, their offense didn't impress me. Like, it's a lot of one-on-one, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum taking turns, Marcus Smart going rogue and shooting them out of games. But if they can kind of get that ball movement going, if they can kind of get the other guys involved, Al Horford killed the Bucks because they kept leaving them wide open. Maybe they can cobble enough offense together, but I don't think I'm willing to bet on that. So I guess with all that being said, I think I'm gonna go Warriors in 7. I don't want to see Marcus Smart win. So that also is like a little thumb on the scale for me. But we are rapidly running out of time. You can catch us on Facebook and Twitter. You can catch us on Twitter and Instagram at Technical Foul, Facebook and YouTube at Technical Foul Podcast, and our website is www.technicalfoul.com. You can catch me on Twitter at BucksBurner. That is all you get for now. Camille's on Twitter also, Camille Monet, CamilleMonae. Her mom is fancy. It up.
Indeed. Everyday_gentleman on Instagram, KRS216 on Twitter and Snapchat.
And it's your boy TIMKINZ, the number 3, aka Ass Ketchum, aka Mr. Give It To Me. I should have, you got my cereals and shit, but peace.
Dog.